Welcome back to DreamHack Montreal 2018. It is officially time to get our final round of Swiss underway. After this, we will be making our cut to top 16. We'll find out which players are going to be playing tomorrow for that DreamHack Championship title. But before that, we are going to see a couple of our remaining players fighting it out for those top 16 spots. Joining me for our final round of the day is one of the birthday boys. We've got Dr. J. Good cake, Jay?
Oh yeah, it was phenomenal. I was tearing that cake up. I feel bad. I might not have let Lorinda have as much as he may have wanted to.
Lorinda, you know what? There was a little bit left. If he wants, he can go tackle that now. Were you surprised? Did you have any inkling?
I was. I remember you talking to Martin earlier. And
one of the production
managers, and I was sitting there. I was like, "Am I in trouble? Like, I haven't said anything bad on cast yet, have I?"
Yeah, they messaged me in the Discord, told me to come in, and we're like, you know what? Say some things, and we have a cake. And I was like, sure. Like, you want to give Jace a headset? They're like, nah.
Nah,
like,
you
okay.
just show up.
All right, so we made it happen. It's been a long couple of days here. We want to make sure that these guys feel appreciated on their birthdays, and we get to then, of course, call this sort of a birthday stream. That's always fun. We always like those. But ultimately, we got to get back down to business. It is the 9th and final round of Swiss here at DreamHack Montreal. After this point, we make the cut to the top 16. And, well, you know actually perfectly what it's like to make it to this point of a tournament. By the end of day 2, you got to be tired, right? You've been playing all day long.
So not only are you tired, Cora, but you're also sitting there and you start to realize that it depends on where you're at kind of in the Swiss. A lot of times I would be at this position where I would be 6-2 at this point. After 8 rounds of grueling Swiss, you sit there, you start to get fatigued. You start to think, oh my gosh, if I have to play that odd control warrior matchup one more time, I don't know what I'm going to do. But at the end of the day, you're 6-2, the nerves get to you, it starts to become stressful because you know it's effectively like you're on the bubble. You are on the bubble of if you win, you are in that top 16, you have a legitimate chance at winning the entire tournament. But if you lose, you did all of that hard work, and you don't get that same chance.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot.
You don't really want to be in that 6-3 spot because maybe we get 1 or 2 6-3 record players who make it through to top 16, but you need to have some very good tiebreakers, meaning the losses had to come very late in the tournament. 7-2 is that safe space, but it's always a bit of a risk. And you won DreamHack Atlanta and got second at DreamHack Denver last year. Do you remember your records going into the top 16 cuts?
So for DreamHack Atlanta, I had lost the very first game of the tournament. Oh. I then proceeded to win out to go 4-1 after day 1. And then the next day, I believe I lost my first game coming into the day and then went out for the rest. Again, I was on that bubble placement.
7-2.
I think Denver was a little bit more luxurious because I ended up going 7-1 and had that reassurance of making the top cut, which is much better feeling than going into it being 6-2 and you say, all right, I have to win this game. If I lose, I'm out. If I win, obviously I have a chance. So I've been on the cusp of both. For Atlanta, I was on that cusp saying, if I lose this game, my Atlanta career is over. And then for, Denver, it felt so much better to say, all right, maybe I can relax this last game a little bit. Of course, I still want to win, go 8-1, but it's much better to, kind of take a little backseat there.
Some very different mindsets that our players are going to be in heading into this final round of the day. And we can actually take a look at the standings and which players are still fighting for that top 16 spot. These are the top 20 players right now. Players at 8-0 and 7-1 have already qualified for the top 16. So, Phenomeno, Amnesiac, Yarla, Orange, Just Sayin, and Plants. All of them have qualified for the top 16. Pheno is the only player who has the potential to go undefeated in the Swiss. Then we have Level 9001, Hunter Ace, G, Impact, ZLSJS, Duckpone, Gallon, Boston, PNC, Kevor24. Those 6-2 players have the best tiebreakers, would be in the top 16 as of now. But Seohyun, Hotmeowth, Soflo, and Conrad are on that bubble. It looks like we're going to have a pretty clear cut. The 6-2 players will play against each other. One of the 7-1s will be paired with Pheno, and from there we will be able to determine who our top 16 players will be.
Yeah, and you look at this top 16 field right now, you recognize a lot of these names. A lot of these names I'm personally familiar with. A lot of these names are either close friends of mine or people that live in my local area and actually competed with in the Tavern Hero systems back before I got any kind of notoriety. So it's very impressive to see all these names and how consistently well they are doing. I'm really excited. I'm really hoping for a lot of these players to get that top 16 that they deserve.
DreamHack is traditionally a place where players can break out. Players that you see at Tavern Heroes or at your local events or playing in, qualification brackets and open cups, things like that, who maybe don't have that championship experience, who haven't won a tournament in the past. We're actually going to be seeing one of those players in our match here. This is a decider match. It is Galen versus PNC. PNC, obviously, with HCT championship experience, a very talented player from South America. Galen is a name that if you are a diehard Hearthstone fan and you've been watching a lot of DreamHack events, you might recognize him, but he hasn't had that win just yet. Super nice guy, very talented player, just hasn't quite gotten there, although I do believe he has gotten a top 16 at least finish at a DreamHack in the past. I don't recall which one.
I believe so. He's also teammates, with Purple, playing on that Gamer's Origin tag. He's got a big name to fill, and I would say, though, that, he's a very, not necessarily a very accomplished player, but he is a very strong player in and of himself, and a lot of players in the, pro scene do respect his gameplay.
Ton of potential.
Especially someone like Purple, who is his teammate, and Purple, believes in him. I believe they brought the exact same lineup and worked on this lineup together. And you just got, if you've got a teammate like Purple, you've got that practice group, you've had that support group, it kind of shows that you are there to compete. And I mean, we can't talk enough about PNC. PNC is also another one of those players from the South American scene that just represents them so well. A very solid player, has had success in multiple tournaments, and I'd be really excited to see either of these players make the top 16.
I want to say PNC is from Argentina. I believe he's played in, he definitely played in the Hearthstone Global Games last year. I'm not positive if he is on the team this year, although I would be surprised if he was not. Though Global Games, I will admit, has been a bit of a blur with all of the other events that have been going on. It's been a very busy couple of months here for these players. But PNC is a very talented player. He is on Team Genji alongside Sintalal, who just qualified for the HCT Championships from the European region. And we'll actually be seeing PNC playing next weekend in the Americas playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can speak enough about these players and how strong they are. I guess the cards are just going to have to play themselves, and they're going to have to go ahead and go face-to-face.
They're just going to take their hands off their keyboard and say, all right, cards, play yourselves.
Go ahead, cards, play yourselves.
You got it.
You got it. I've got faith in you, cards. Go ahead, Malagos. I'm tagging you in.
We can take a look at which cards will not be having the opportunity to play themselves because they'll be banned away. See exactly what these players are working with. I do think they're going to have to pilot these games to an extent. Galen and PNC's Warlocks will both be banned. Galen with Druid, Rogue, Warrior. PNC with Druid, Rogue, and Mage. We saw PNC on stream earlier today. He did end up winning. Galen, I think this is his first appearance.
Yeah, I do think this is Galen's first appearance on the stream. I wouldn't be surprised if he had been streamed in the past. We're looking at the lineups here. It's going to be that Galen has the Token Druid, the Odd Rogue, and the Odd Control Warrior. Something very reminiscent of Purple's lineup that we've seen on stream before.
Yeah.
And for PNC's lineup, we're looking at a Quest Rogue, Malagos Druid, and a Tempo Mage. It's really going to come down to how these matchups kind of pair up. I wouldn't be surprised if PNC doesn't quite get the win with his Tempo Mage that he'd want to. I think that's going to be a very crucial talking point for this matchup. PNC is going to have a difficult time getting that Tempo Mage through. It's pretty bad against Token Druid, pretty bad against Odd Rogue. It's fairly weak against Odd Warrior. I think its best matchup actually might be that Odd Rogue, which is crazy to say because in the past, it's not really something you'd think about.
That is surprising. I would generally give Odd Rogue the favor in that matchup, but just because the Odd Rogue is favored doesn't mean that it's any less of PNC's best chance to get a win with that Mage. With that Tempo Mage, you're trying to target down Quest Rogue, but Galen just does not have it. So with that being said, everybody in the chat, now is your chance to sound off. Is it going to be #Galen or #PNC taking this win and securing their spot in the top 16? Tempo Mage might be a little bit of a struggle for PNC to find a win with, but he is the more experienced player, and it's looking like Galen ever so slightly going to edge out the win here as far as audience votes go, although this is very, very close.
Yeah, I think both of these players, they're just, it could go either way. The only reason I'm saying PNC might struggle with the Tempo Mages a little bit is because Token Druid is not that great of a matchup. There's a lot of armor gain there.
Horrible.
Odd Warrior is an abysmal matchup because there is so much armor gain. The reason Odd Rogue is doable, and the reason I said it was one of the better matchups that could potentially come into play, is that you do have combos like Cosmic Anomaly and Shooting Star that can win you the board back, and Odd Rogue doesn't necessarily have sometimes the tools in order to deal with that cosmic anomaly.
Do you agree with PNC's ban here, taking the Warlock away?
I think you have to take the Warlock away because the Warlock is going to beat the Questor. So PNC is going to know that Gallon bans the even Warlock because it's the most control-y deck in PNC's lineup. And what's going to happen is the Zulok is going to take care of the Tempo Mage, the Malagos Druid, and the Questor. If you don't ban the Zulok, it can sweep the entire lineup. At least with having another, deck up, there is potential.
All right, game number 1. Let's get right into our final series of the Swiss. After this, we will know which players have qualified for the top 16, and it will be one of these players right here. It's going to be the Druid Mirror up first. Both of these players on the Token Druid, I believe.
No, actually, PNC has the Malagos Druid. So PNC has the Malagos Druid. Gallon has the Token Druid. Token Druid's been on fire throughout the entire tournament. I think that's one of the decks that probably has swept the most opponents. And you see Gallon there. I actually like his mulligan a lot. It's something you don't typically see that often. He didn't have any other ramp cards, but he decided to keep Ultimate Infestation on the coin. Now that may seem a little weird, but in this matchup and in a lot of matchups, Ultimate Infestation is almost necessary to win the game or to get yourself back into the game, especially being Token Druid. I think Malagos Druid can get away with not having the card, but Token Druid, sometimes you cannot get away without having that card.
I agree. I think it's absolutely correct for Gallon to keep that Ultimate Infestation since he is going to have a pretty ample amount of time to ramp up to 10 mana to find the cards that he needs to bridge that gap. PNC is not looking to build a giant board to win this game. He is wanting to get that Twig of the World tree active, swing with that 4 times, and be ready to break it, then play Malagos, break the Twig, and then with Phlebidinous Floop start launching Burn at face, close out the game that way. It can be difficult. Druid can gain a lot of armor, although we saw earlier today Plants playing this matchup, I believe, from the Token Druid standpoint, I want to say. And just going all in on Arcane Tyrants very early on, dealing a lot of damage that way.
I believe so as well. I think that's, a little bit more questionable when that comes into play, but it's definitely something that can happen. I mean, sometimes you just get those Arcane Tyrants on board, they start to chip away at the health total, then you branching paths them up and kind of end the game. I'm actually curious if PNC is running Togwaggle Druid. I was actually going to say this just now.
It's Mallywaggle.
I'm not sure if it's Mallywaggle or if it's just King Togwaggle Druid. I'm actually not quite sure. I know PNC was on stream earlier.
Okay.
But I don't believe either of us had
This is what happens when we don't have deck lists in front of us. We look silly, Jace.
It could still be Mally Togwaggle. It's been a popular one.
It's probably just Togwaggle.
I think it is just Togwaggle. You kind of want to...
Well,
you don't really want to conflict too much with the game plans, and the Togwaggle Druid does change this up quite a bit because you don't have the same burst potential and you have to get through your deck much quicker in order to really do anything.
If that is the case and there's no Malagos, you can see, one, how difficult it is to tell which Druid deck is which. Thankfully, deck lists are open for these players, so Gallon knows exactly what he is playing against, but the Druid shells are nearly identical. The win condition in this case is just going to be King Togwaggle plus Azalina with a Dream Petal Florist or that Twig instead of Malagos plus Burn. So PNC still wants to take this one very late. He wants to draw aggressively through his entire deck. This is a matchup where you will see PNC doing weird things like using UI when he has more than 5 cards in hand, willingly burning cards, nourishing for cards in the late game just to burn cards, because he is going to eventually play King Togwaggle and Azalina Soul Thief in the same exact turn, give Gallon his deck, copy that King's Ransom so that Gallon is forced to lose in fatigue.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to think about that you would just cast Ultimate Infestation with 8 to 9 cards in your hand, but if you have the full combo assembled, I mean, sometimes it's just right. You really don't care what you're burning because your plan isn't to use those cards for value. Your plan is to get through your entire deck in order to swap it with your opponents, forcing them to go into fatigue and you to just stabilize with their deck. And we see there, PNC is going for a very aggressive play here, going for the Starfall, just basically enabling him to put 2 of these Arcane Tyrants on the board. That was mostly because he needs to start dumping his hand in order to be able to cast this Ultimate Infestation in the next couple of turns. And if there is something like a strong Shell Scavenger, it will be able to contest these Annoyatrons quite well.
Do you know who this matchup favors? Because I'm honestly
I'm just kidding.
unsure.
I would say in the past, when this matchup was played, if it was something like a Malagos Druid, I would say that the Malagos Druid might slightly be favored, and if that is favored, it may be like a 53-47, something very
small window.
Very minimal. And the reason I might say that is because the Malagos Druid, when it has that twig up, can have just that ultimate win condition towards the end of the game where you really can't do anything about it. But now with the most recent addition of the Giggling Inventors and the Strong Shell Scavengers, it makes it a whole lot more difficult because there's more sticky board states that the Druid didn't have to answer in the past. For instance, the most the Druid had to answer in the past is a Violet Teacher, the Whispering Woods Soul, and that's about it. Now you have to answer Giggling Inventors, Strong Shell Scavengers, Serenite Chain Gangs, you name it, you gotta answer it.
I'm seeing the board definitely being more difficult for PNC to deal with in this matchup now, and he really does not have a win condition other than that King Togwaggle fatigue scenario. So you saw with the Starfall, that is the answer to a board of Treants. You swipe away the Wisps, assuming they haven't been buffed with Power of the Wild. Starfall the Treants, that's a nice, clean board clear for 9 mana, but usually they only have 1 copy of Starfall, so that is already gone for PNC, and there hasn't even been any Treants played yet. I do like what Gallon did there by playing the Strong Shell Scavenger before the Flabidinous Floop. He had the Giggling Inventor queued up, which looks like a lot more value off of the Floop, but by playing the Scavenger first and then copying the Scavenger with the Floop, he's able to take those value trades with the Annoyotron and ensure that both Annoyotrons are more difficult for PNC to clear.
Yeah, I'm a little curious as if it was more beneficial to push face damage that turn. That's something to look back on and consider. But another reason why that's just more powerful is because not only are you able to take those value trades, it makes it much more difficult for PNC to answer the board state, but it's also just the fact that it makes Spreading Plague worse. And Spreading Plague is basically the arch nemesis in this matchup that you have to always be accounting for.
Yeah.
If there were more Annoyotrons with less attack and health, Spreading Plague would be much more powerful than if there are less Annoyotrons but much healthier and have much more attack.
This is looking to me like Gallon could just run away with this game.
To be honest, I would agree. This is looking very good for Gallon. And this is one of the reasons why Token Druid is so powerful. Sometimes you just can't do anything against it, and it just steamrolls.
PNC's deck is a little bit too slow. In a game against any warrior, PNC is going to win 100% of the time, assuming he plays it correctly. Against Hunter, he's going to have a fair shot because Deathstalker Rexar is less of a win condition when your entire deck is stolen from you and they're forced to fatigue for 4 cards with naturalizes at the end of the game. There's a lot of matchups where this Togwaggle Druid is advantageous over a Token Druid, but this is just not one of them.
Oh, but this is so much damage. I think this is just game-ending right here.
There's 13 on board.
I wouldn't count it. I would just do it. I think it's game-ending.
That's 8. That's another 16. Plus 13 is 29. There's 28. Throw in an extra 6.
That sounds like lethal to me.
So stupid much damage for Gallon. He's going to take game number 1.
That was redonkulous damage.
Redonkulous.
Vocabulary word for that.
It's your birthday. You'll say redonkulous if you want to. But that was a fast victory for Gallon. And the more that you really think about that matchup, the more that it does seem like the Token Druid is just incredibly favored. It's so much faster. Not to mention Gallon just, he had better ramp that game. He hit UI first, so he had natural resource advantage. Everything just went in his favor.
Yeah, he also kept the Ultimate Infestation. He did mulligan into the Wild Growth and Nourish. It was very fortunate for him, but he recognized that, he needed that Ultimate Infestation. Let's say, he had mulliganed the Ultimate Infestation and were to pick up, some just other card.
Yeah.
It may not have panned out the same way where Gallon, may have made that board state. PNC could have lasted a little bit longer. And then what if he just fizzled the next couple of draws? That's something that needs to be considered. But for PNC right now, it is looking very dangerous. PNC has, in order to answer this deck, either Tempo Mage or Quest Rogue. And it looks like he's going for the Tempo Mage, which is a decent matchup, but I don't know if it's the best matchup.
If I were in his shoes, I would favor the Quest Rogue here. But neither of his decks are counters to this Druid deck. It's fast enough to beat Quest Rogue before they complete the quest and start to manipulate the board with all of their powered up minions, and it has enough armor and sustainability to beat all of the burn from the mage. Even with an Alaneth on turn 6, Branching Paths is a hell of a card.
And PNC is missing that very infamous Mana Worm on 1. Gallon's looking over saying with a sigh of relief, thank you for not having that Mana Worm on 1. But Gallon's hand isn't looking too strong right now. Has some very powerful taunts, and oh my gosh. Mana Worm, what were you doing? You were just late to the birthday party.
We all were counting on you.
I think PNC was counting on Mana Worm. I wasn't counting on Mana Worm. I always know Mana Worm shows up a bit late to the party, but...
We're all rooting for you, Mana Worm.
Nobody's rooting for Mana Worm.
You know you have a job to do.
Nobody's rooting for Mana Worm. I wouldn't be surprised to see PNC just go ahead and cast this. Needs to find something like Arcane Intellect. I think that's probably one of the best takes.
Oh, that's not actually good. But it's fun.
Lunar's Pocket Galaxy
10 out of 10 on the fun scale, am I right?
Flashy, but one of the craziest things is I almost wouldn't be opposed to considering it. And I know this is ludicrous. I know this sounds crazy. But if you play it on 5, you play a Lunith on 6, your entire deck is 1 mana minions. It makes it easier to dump with a Lunith.
Oh,
you get 2 Cosmic Anomalies down, you start casting Shooting Stars, you start Frostbolting.
And you know what? It's discounted, so it's 5 mana. You play that on 5, play a Lunith on 6.
Because Mana Bind's going to give you a coin. Frozen Clone is going to give you 2 Serenite Chain Gangs or 2 Giggling Adventures, which is decent, but it's not the greatest. But if you Lunar's Pocket Galaxy with the intent to go a Lunith and you get 1 mana Sorcerer's Apprentices and 1 mana Cosmic Anomalies.
Yeah. Stargazer Luna is super cheap. Maybe you can chain a ton of burn.
There's potential for this, and I'm excited because I love this card.
PNC doesn't look like he's convinced that what he just did was right.
PNC, what you did, I think, was right.
I don't know that he can afford to do nothing on turn 5 and then also do nothing on turn 6. But that's what he's going to have to do. That's what he's committed.
Got nothing to do on turn 4
committed to
either.
do that with this play.
There's something.
Yeah, technically. Yes.
I mean, it's a 3 mana 4/3. Put it in, Coach. Coach PNC, put it in. Take it off the bench.
Get me off the bench. Mana Worm was late, Coach. I can do it.
Mana Worm was late. Mana Worm never shows up.
I'm better than
practice.
the water boy.
I think Cosmic Anomaly is the MVP of the deck now. Cosmic Anomaly is the 3-point shooter. Shoots the arcane missiles over the top.
I wonder how long could this go?
But I will say, you know, Gallon doesn't have that impressive of a hand himself. Oh, I really wish he would have rather had that discounted. But making the entire deck with 1 mana minions and being able to cast those 1 mana minions with the Stargazer Luna in order to keep drawing cards seems pretty fun. I don't know if it's good.
It's 10 out of 10 fun.
It's pretty fun.
Super fun favored.
That might just be
PNC.
enough. To be honest, that might just be enough to get PNC there.
Chase, are you high?
No, I'm. Let's go, PNC. I want to see this.
Convinced. I'm not convinced whatsoever.
I think this was the play.
There's a Malfurion in hand for Gallon that he can coin into. He's got 2 Branching Paths in the deck. He's going to Ultimate Infestation on turn 10.
Well, when PNC goes Stargazer Luna into Sorcerer's Apprentice into Infinite Deck,
sure,
you're going to be crying.
Sure.
Right?
We can only hold 10 cards, Jace.
I mean, let's just see these 1 mana minions, if they even come to the hand. There's a start. 1 mana Arcanologist is pretty good. It's like Zombie Chow.
I can't discount. We're playing Emperor Thorson again, but worse. So much worse.
I mean, I will say though, if Sorcerer's Apprentice does get picked up, and Stargazer Luna can start going off with these spells, it could be very powerful.
It could be. It definitely could be. I think that this was PNC's best chance to win this game, as he is so unfavored. And I know I'm giving him a hard time for it, but I think this really was the route. Even if you have a 1% chance to win the game, you owe it to yourself to take it. And this is a qualification match. They're both 6-2. They need to win this series to guarantee qualification to top 16.
I still think PNC has a legitimate chance with that Lunar's Pocket Galaxy. I know you think I'm crazy right now, but I think you might just see the power of that card.
Just look at how much pressure is on Galen's board, though. I mean, he has Savage Roar.
I'm
Fury
really
and the Pestilent
feeling
in hand. This is just a lot of damage from Galen.
To be honest, I think it has to be Stargazer Luna, cast the rightmost Arcane Missiles, hope to draw the 1-mana Sorcerer's Apprentice, play the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then just go off.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance, and I think PNC needs to take it. What else is PNC doing this turn? Shooting Star the Giggling Inventor and then crying? That's not enough.
There's no time for crying.
And PNC knows that there's coin still in the hand for this counter spell.
An incredible discovery.
It's actually a big advantage inherently that Galen had in this matchup by being on the coin.
I'm a little curious as to what PNC is trying to do here. It appears if he just wants to play the minions and force Galen to make a very defensive approach. I mean, all it takes is a Sorcerer's Apprentice and a Cosmic Anomaly, but PNC is not drawing any of those minions, and they all cost 1 mana right now.
Yeah, Mana Worm's 1 mana. That's so good.
Look at that discounted Mana Worm.
Man,
It's
oh man.
impressive.
This is a rough game for PNC. He absolutely did what he had to do. That Primordial Glyph did him no favors. The Mana Worm came a turn late, and Galen had a, you know, not the best start that he could have possibly had, but a good enough start that he's just going to win the game next turn on board. Unless PNC gets that Sorcerer's Apprentice and starts making missile magic happen.
That's not missile magic, but there's a lot of missiles to be played here. I don't know if it's quite enough, though. I mean, I think it's very unfortunate that PNC went for the Lunar's Pocket Galaxy and then has not drawn
Any of
the Sorcerer's Apprentices.
Yep. And he picked up the Stargazer Luna, the draw, before he played that Aleneth.
Yes, imagine if that was 1 mana. That could have changed a whole lot.
PNC queued up this mage knowing that it was very unlikely that he finds a win with this mage in the match anyway, so he might as well just queue it up here. If he gets a win, that's amazing for him. If he loses, that's kind of what he expected.
I will say, though, you know, even if he does lose this game, which is looking pretty grim for him right now, even if he does lose this game...
Ooh, there's the anomaly.
I guess
No
let's go ahead and
Sorcerer's
watch these
Apprentice,
missiles because they're going to have to be magical here.
And these are Cinder Storms for 1 mana. This is not going to be anywhere near enough. Galen with that Savage Roar is going to take game number 2. He's still got a full board after that turn from PNC. Tempo Mage can do some really awesome things. Luna's Pocket Galaxy is a very fun card. Really unexplored at this point, but I don't think it goes in this deck. Galen gonna go 2-0. That mage, like we predicted, really struggled.
Yeah, that mage really struggled that game. Not even sure if you're supposed to take it off of the Primordial Glyph, but I like PNC's decision there. I think the other 2 picks were very weak, and I think he had a game plan. Fortunately for him, he didn't find any of those minions. I think maybe if he found some of those minions, it would have turned out to be a much different game. One last thing, though, is PNC's last deck, I believe, is Quest Rogue. And if his last deck is Quest Rogue, he is one of the prominent Quest Rogue players alongside, in at least the Americas region, alongside Killin' All Day and Tare. And they play this deck a lot. They're very tried and true to this deck. If PNC can beat the Token Druid, Galen has Odd Warrior, which is a free matchup. Maybe not necessarily free, but a very favorable matchup that I'd say is like 80-20. And then Odd Rogue. And I believe every time on stream, we have seen the Odd Rogue lose to the Quest Rogue. There may have been 1 or 2 games where it did, but most of the games, I think Quest Rogue has won that matchup.
It's looked pretty decisive for the Quest Rogue when it should be Odd Rogue favored. To be fair, though, Quest Rogue has just looked incredibly strong this entire tournament. We've seen it with several 3-0 sweeps. We've seen it with several reverse sweeps. A lot of players, you know, kind of joking about how Quest Rogue just, it does all the work. They don't need anything else because their Quest Rogue is just winning them all of their games. And you kind of have to wonder why Quest Rogue is not being banned away more often. PNC is choosing not to ban Quest Rogue because he has his mage, and his opponents are choosing not to ban his Quest Rogue because they likely have some softer counters like Zoo Warlock that they think are good enough to get past this Quest Rogue, but Quest Rogue can beat anything. This could very well still be a series for PNC.
I think so as well. I think PNC definitely still has a chance. PNC is going to have to play this deck very well, though. On top of, he's going to have to find those Fan of Knives tech cards if he's even running them, and he's going to have to be able to pilot this very impressively. And Gallon has just
wow,
game after game. I think last game was the only game he didn't have that Wild Growth Nourish start, but that is the reason you play this Druid deck. Is you play it because it has some of the most explosive turns in the game.
I do think we've primarily been seeing Quest Rogue players removing a copy of Mimic Pod and a copy of Stone Tusk Boar for 2 copies of Fan of Knives. Does give them a little bit of help in this matchup. And against Odd Paladin, but you're seeing that significantly less than Token Druid. This is a very good start for PNC, having that Sonya Shadow Dancer to use as multiple minions in hand. Yeah, Jace on a piece of paper just wrote Sonya, 6 exclamation marks. He thinks this card's good too.
Yeah, I think this is one of the reasons why this deck is so powerful, is Sonya the Shadow Dancer is a very powerful card. It just allows so much versatility, even having that Shadow Step for it. But PNC might opt to, you know, go ahead and choose to use it onto this Novice Engineer. PNC has a lot to think about here. If he wants to commit to this Novice Engineer now, or if he wants to try and save this Shadow Step for the potential later on, this is one of those decisions with Quest Rogue right now that could decide the entirety of this matchup.
Does he want to go for it? Does he want to commit to this Novice Engineer right now? This is a really tough call, and he's going to decide not to do it. Maybe wants to bounce the Glacial Shard instead. Vanish also operates really strangely in this matchup. If Gallon just has a board of Wisps, you can bounce all of those back, but if it's Wisps with Soul of the Forest on them, and Gallon's hand is full enough that some of those Wisps would not be able to bounce back to hand, they do die, and then the Treants are still summoned onto the board. So PNC will need to be careful about the timing of his Vanish.
Yeah, you do have to be very careful about that. And there is the Charger picked up. I think most of these players, though, would say they're very proficient in understanding, you know, how it works with, you know, that Death Rattle effect. So I'm not too worried about PNC on that level. I'm just worried about maybe the pressure getting to PNC. He is down 2-0 currently, and this is his tournament life on the line. If he does not win this game, he will make top 32, but he won't be in that infamous top 16 that, you know, he wants to.
Gotta get that top 16. If you want the money, that's where you gotta be. Underneath, Sonya, 6 exclamation marks. Wisps, 7 exclamation marks has appeared.
There's only 6.
Oh, my apologies. Why are we talking about Wisps now?
Because you said Wisps earlier.
Fair enough.
Sonya is greater than Wisps. Sonya plus Boar is greater than Wisps.
That's just math, folks.
See Gallon have that very strong and powerful play. There's a Zola. This Boar can be played and answer the Arcane Tyrant, and then be Zola, or obviously Zola can be played onto it. Or there could be the potential to go Sonya, Boar,
yeah,
coin out the shenanigans, and then Shadow Step the Sonya, which is another very powerful play. I don't even think you need to necessarily use the coin to gain that extra one. Could also get a copy of the Youthful Brewmaster back into the hand. I don't see any reason to not do that either. I would have been a little bit wary about using the coin there. You may need to use the coin next turn to get rid of a Wisps board. I'm not quite sure if I agree with that too much on that play.
You would have liked to hold the coin there?
Whoa. Not committing the Shadow Step, I think, is fine. But one of the issues I'm having is,
I love the Shadow Step here.
Let's say Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest were to come out or something like that. If you don't have access to coin Vanish, you can't necessarily punish Gallon for making that play. But what it does do is it does allow for the quest to be essentially completed on the next turn.
I mean, the quest can be completed regardless of the Sonya surviving. Had we kept the coin, Shadow Stepping the Sonya, would have probably been a better line there, but PNC knows what he's doing. Galen does have double Giggling Inventor and Strong Shell Scavenger in hand, so he's going to have some defensive tools.
I think it might have been a little bit different if you could play the quest out on the following turn. That's something to consider, but I'm not quite sure.
Just wondering what he wants to Shadow Step, though. I guess maybe just a Boar for, you know, an extra charger. We've got Scale Hide for extra lifesteal now as well. I just think having a copy of Sonya in your pocket that costs 1 mana whenever you want it is so strong.
Okay, actually, this is a very small detail, and it probably doesn't matter at all. I don't think it was going to affect PNC's play. But as you saw there, Galen was already hovering over the swipe before he even took his turn. And I know Galen plays fast, and he likes to make these very, you know, aggressive plays that he knows is either correct or he just wants to do. But what if PNC saw him hovering over a card ready to play it and said, wait a minute, what if he has swipe? Should I step the Zola now in order to make sure I have it for the next turn? That way his swipe is much weaker. Or what if it was Spreading Plague? He said, you know what, maybe I should get rid of these one of these minions, that way Spreading Plague doesn't do anything. And I know that's a very small detail, but it's something you have to consider when playing in these large-scale events. I mean, on ladder, I don't think it makes it that much of a difference, especially when you're grinding out the matchups, because most ladder opponents aren't thinking on that kind of level. But a player like PNC will be considering all possibilities. I know it's a very small, minute detail that most likely doesn't matter. And I'm sure if I talk to Galen afterwards, he'd let me know it didn't matter. But why not, right?
Yeah, I agree. PNC's going to lose his board here, too. Galen's actually going to have a really threatening board of his own. He can Sarnite and Strong Shell, or he can Giggling and Strong Shell. And now we're looking at a world where maybe PNC doesn't have enough minions to actually fight on board just yet. Also still only going to 7 mana. That Vanish will be quite strong.
Vanish is going to be good. I'm still looking at, you know, Fan Knives being better later on. I definitely think it's going to be the Vanish now. Still has a lot of fight left. Oh, there's a second Vicious Scale Hide. It could go for a Fan of Knives into 2 Vicious Scale Hide attacks. And that'll clean up everything but a 3-4 and a 2-3 while healing up for 8 and leaving 2 of those minions around. And there's already 2 swipes that have been seen. So you know that your opponent can't actually swipe off to answer that board state. So I really like that play and saving onto the Vanish for a Wisps-oriented board.
Yeah. I like it. The worst thing that PNC could see from Galen would be Ultimate Infestation. So as long as Galen doesn't have that, PNC should be still pretty safe here. And this is after willingly giving up Sonya and Zola and not having the mana to play Valeera the Hollow even if he had it just yet. Cheap minions with boosted stats. Gonna just get the job done for PNC, it looks like.
Just look at how powerful Quest Rogue is. This just shows you the power of this deck. Even Shadow Step, the other one, go back to full health and have cleared everything while still holding on to a Vanish.
Yep. There is maybe a world where he runs out of stuff. He would need to draw pretty badly for that to happen. And Galen would need to hit almost exactly Ultimate Infestation. There's Ultimate Infestation. Great, cool.
And now we've got a rodeo in our hands.
All right, this just got interesting. Galen will have to build a board eventually that PNC is going to want to Vanish, but PNC only has the 1 Vanish right now.
And PNC doesn't have much. I wouldn't be surprised to see PNC Hero Power, swing into the goal, trade off the Vicious Scale Hide, call it a day, and wait for the next turn to hopefully find Valeera, hopefully find Mimic Pod, Novice Engineer, just something to keep going. Elven Minstrel.
Yeah, Giggling Inventor would be just a nice white board for 1 minion. Going a little bit too low on stuff. Lost both Vicious Scale Hides now as well. So the life gain for PNC is strictly going to be the 5 armor from Valeera the Hollow.
And here's where that interaction with Vanish comes very in handy. If Gallon decides to go for the Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest, PNC will make sure to clean up the board and then vanish the minions back to the hand. He will have enough mana to play essentially everything. He'll be able to dagger one in if Gallon does not commit to the Power of the Wild. He'll be able to trade 2 of these boars in and be able to vanish everything back. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. I believe there is 3 slots in the hand for Gallon right now. If he does clear off 3, then there will be 1 Treant left.
Gallon trying to set up a 2-turn lethal. Only buff card he actually has in hand is that Power of the Wild just now, but PNC doesn't know that.
I definitely think PNC is going to commit to the Stone Tusk Boar, trade, dagger into 1, replay the Stone Tusk Boar with the 1-mana Youthful Brewmaster, trade, go ahead and clean up 3 of them. That'll leave 4 of the Wisps left over. Vanish can then be activated. 3 of the Wisps will go back to hand. 1 of the Wisps will die. The Treants will die, and then there will be 1 2/2 left on the board. I think that's what PNC needs to do here. I don't think there's anything really else. I think PNC is very proficient with this deck. I think he definitely sees this line of play.
And then after this, he will not have a Vanish in response to the next big board, and this is assuming that Gallon has another strong board on the next turn. So PNC will be looking for second Vanish or Valeera the Hollow or Giggling Inventor primarily to continue drawing out this game just a little bit further.
PNC with a good spot there. Gonna be able to burn a card. If he actually burns something like another Soul of the Forest or Whispering Woods, that could be pretty good. Ultimate Infestation, not the strongest of burns, but definitely, you know, just, I would say, a useful burn there. Especially since, you know, Gallon's hand is a lot of just measly tokens that he's gonna try and put onto the board. I would have much rather seen, you know, Whispering Woods burned, but I think PNC will take it at this point. PNC is going to need to draw something powerful.
He's got 2 draws for it, at least, with the Novice Engineer. Can brew back the Engineer Plate again, but by that point, you've used most of your mana. Things get a little bit sketchy. And very importantly, these Saronite Chain Gangs are big enough that they are going to soak multiple attacks each from the minions on PNC's side of the board. So the best thing that he could find would be that second Vanish.
So now the question is it better to Mimic Pod into 2 copies of a potential draw, or is it better to go Novice Engineer with the intent of trying to hit a preparation and do both, or with the intent? I think Vanish is the obvious draw here, so PNC is going to be asking, is it better to have 2 draws? Is there another card he would want 2 of, like Glacial Shard, or does he need this to be Vanish? And in that case, he can go for Novice Engineer first. If it's Vanish, great. You just go ahead and cast it. If it's prep, you can go ahead and prep out the Mimic Pod and still have a chance to get that Vanish. I think a Novice would be better here first.
Okay.
Giggling Inventor.
Does that... Yeah, that keeps him alive. Gallon doesn't have Savage Roar or Paths in hand.
There's no real...
There's no buff spells in hand.
Inside of the hand currently. Gallon does have some pretty clean answers for this Giggling Inventor. Can put in 2 of the minions. Gonna go ahead and Wild Growth first. Can put in 2 of the Wisps and then use double Spellstone and then push the rest of base if he chooses to do so. But PNC is just a couple more turns away, and Gallon knows that Giggling Inventor was off Mimic Pod.
Yeah, that's scary. PNC is very close to being able to stabilize here. Again, both Scale Hides have been used. The only life gain he's got is the armor off of Valeera, but he's still sitting at 24 health. If he's got a Wall of Taunts up, he's not too worried. If at any point that Wall of Taunts does come down, or PNC whiffs on a turn of taunts, then things will likely be closed out very quickly by Gallon. Jay drew a smiley face on a piece of paper. Which one of these players is feeling particularly smiley face right now? Or are they both kind of anxious face a little bit?
Looking at PNC's face, I don't think he's got a smile on his face.
Is this colon / you would say, for both of these players?
I would say it's colon / for both of these players.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one of those, you know, resting faces. That's probably PNC right now. But there you see, Gallon just has those answers. Gallon doesn't have that buff. PNC is 1 advantage draw away from basically being back in this game and probably taking command of this game. But right now, he's down to 9 life. He's going to need something here.
Ooh.
Preparation.
Useless.
Not that something.
Actually cannot. find a card to use with preparation this turn. That's a dead draw.
I mean, Giggling Inventor.
He can brew back the Novice and then play that again. He does that, he can prep Vanish.
I kind of like the Brewmaster for Novice again to see, because if you draw a Vanish, you're in a decent spot.
I think that's the only way he wins this game.
But there is a possibility where PNC gives himself more chances to draw that Vanish if he goes for a play where he goes Giggling Inventor, Minstrel, finds Glacial Shard, and Glacial Shards the Serenite Chain Gang. I think he would still be fine through that if he knows that Gallon does not have something like it. There's also Wax Elemental if he's playing that. And there's the Glacial Shard.
Okay.
That can come out and freeze that 5/6 Serenite Chain Gang.
This is definitely the safer play.
I like this play a lot because it effectively increases your draws because you draw 2 minions rather than 1 card.
So more likely that PNC finds Valera the Hollow.
Savage
or Vanish. Roar off the top, however, is going to do it. Gallon, with a 3-0 victory here, is going to the top 16, a 7-2 match record over 2 days of Swiss. PNC with a 6-3. We're gonna have to see how tiebreakers work out. He did take a couple of losses later in the tournament, so he's not out of contention just yet, but I would say it's more likely that he makes that top 32 cut instead of top 16. With top 32, PNC will get some points. Not all of his work was useless. You know, you're going to go home with some of those points. Qualification for playoffs becomes a little bit easier then, but it is going to be Gallon who's going through to that top 16.
Yeah, points mean everything right now. You know, if you just get those little points, whether they're just for getting to playoffs, just being good for team standings, the points really mean everything to these players right now, and ultimately, at the end of the day, that's one of the major things that they're competing for, is to make sure that they have that slot into the HCT playoffs, or to make sure that their team is higher up on the team standings, especially when they have to compete with strong teams like Tempo Storm.
And PNC is on a very widely, highly regarded team.
Yes.
Team Genji alongside, like we were saying, Sintalal, who just qualified for the HCT Summer Championships from the European region. We are going to see PNC playing in the Americas playoffs this weekend, unfortunately. Just not his series. Token Druid, I think one of the big stories of this tournament. It has come back with a vengeance, and it is looking better than ever. We'll have to see in the top 16 if it's going to keep up this stride, or if decks like even Warlock and Odd Warrior are going to be able to stop it in its tracks. However it ends up, Gallon did have a fierce performance with it in this series, and he is moving on to the top 16. Depending on how things are shaping up out there in the audience, it's looking like we are going to be having a really fantastic top 16 bracket. We have some very strong names who potentially could make that qualification.
Yeah, there are so many just strong names out there. I mean, you've got the Tempest Storm guys. I believe there is Just Saying and Amnesiac, just powerful players in and of themselves. You've got some players from Nordavind. I believe Yarla and Hunterace are still in the contention. You can just go on and name all of these players, and all of them, I think, are very deserving. You know, a couple of my friends out there, like Conrad, I believe, is still in there. Very, you know, not a very well-known player within the community, but he does have some success having top 16s at other tournaments like EGLX, and also the previous DreamHack Austin that hasn't had the quite breakout performance that I would like to see him have.
Some players who maybe could use this as a boost in their career, and some players that are fan favorites. We are going to have to wait to find out exactly who that top 16 will be. Things are running a little bit late here in Montreal, so we are going to be done with the stream for tonight. We're going to be playing out top 16 off stream, but when we come back tomorrow, it will be all of the remaining matches, the 4 quarterfinal matches, our 2 semifinals, and then of course we will crown our champion. Things are going to be getting started 1 hour earlier tomorrow, so 10 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure you tune in right here, twitch.tv/DreamHackHS. We want to extend a big thanks to Corsair for making this entire tournament season possible. Without them, we could not have done this tournament. We could not be crowning our DreamHack Montreal 2018 champion. That's going to be it for tonight. We will see y'all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure you keep eyes on the DreamHack HS Twitter for that top 16 bracket when it will be announced later tonight. Until then, have a great night. We'll see y'all tomorrow.